Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Now today I'm gonna be doing my Pickems for the APAC LCQ. Now in a separate video when it gets closer to the event, I will be reviewing all these teams. So basically it's what I did for both of the Masters events, where I talk about the teams for a bit and the players and the coaches, all that other stuff. So that'll be coming out pretty soon, maybe in 3 days time, 2 days time, depending on when you see this video. Well, actually, depending on when this video gets uploaded to YouTube, I should say. So, let's get right into it. So, the first team, well, I guess the first match we'll talk about is Griffin Esports versus Order. So, this is Hong Kong versus Australia. Griffin Esports kind of surprised me during the Stage 2 playoffs in APAC. They really came. They were very, very quiet. Kind of fell under the radar for most people. I didn't realize that. I'm gonna guess some other people also didn't realize it as well. But I'm going to stay true to my country. I'm going to say Order's going to win this one. Is it maybe because I'm being a bit biased? Probably. But over time when you find out, I'm being a bit realistic, but I'm also trying not to be under realistic, if that makes sense. Next up is Cerberus Esports versus Alter Ego. So this is a Vietnamese team versus an Indonesian team, if I remember correctly. I'll be honest, these teams have been an afterthought. I mean, I completely forgot about. Cerberus Esports, they are I guess the best Vietnamese team, tied with Fantasy United Esports. But I'm gonna say maybe Cerberus Esports is a tiny bit better. Alter Ego, they just been nowhere, I'll be honest, which is why I'm actually going to say Cerberus Esports is going to win that one against Alter Ego. First up, for the upper quarter finals, we have Onik G versus Order. This is a very easy win for Onik. If Order somehow wins this, I'll be very disappointed in Onik, because this should be a very easy win for them. Next up, Boom Esports versus Fantasy United Esports. In Fantasy United Esports, they were pretty good, pretty decent, but I mean, Boom Esports, they're just better. It's just a fact, they're just better than Fantasy United Esports. Bleed versus Cerberus Esports, I mean, there's no shot. Bleed is easily going to win this. The next one is actually pretty difficult. It may be the only good match in the upper quarterfinals. Made in Thailand versus Team Secret. Now, Team Secret is the only Filipino team in the LCQ. Myth, made in Thailand, they're pretty decent. They were the best team actually in Thailand for a bit until they kind of fell off. Team Secret, they haven't been looking pretty good. Myth have been looking really strong actually now this season, which is why I'm actually gonna say Myth. I think Myth is gonna win against Team Secret. Lower round one, we have Team Secret versus Griffin Esports. We'll start with them and be Team Secret winning that. I'm sorry, Griffin Esports fans. I'm sorry to the Hong Kong viewers as well that I have. Griffin Esports, I mean, actually, Griffin actually may surprise me. There might be a dark horse that I'm just being really low on, and they're just somehow going to make it into freaking champions. If they do, that'll be a massive shocker to the APAC scene. Fantasy United Esports versus Alter Ego. I'm actually going to say Alter Ego. I think Alter Ego is going to win this. I can't be honest. I don't buy on the Vietnamese scene. I'm just not convinced yet. It's I'm also not convinced on the Hong Kong Taiwan on the Hong Kong Taiwan scene in APAC. I'm not convinced there at all. I'm also not convinced in Vietnam. What else am I not convinced on? Isn't it another one? I'm actually not even convinced on the Oceania scene even as well. Order, they did win against. Who they went? They won against. It was a team, obviously. I think it was Oasis Gaming, but Oasis Gaming, they're fucking easy. I think they were weren't they first seeding in the Philippines? Or I think so, and they just fell off. But either way, I'm not really convinced on those three regions. So, yeah, some big progress needs to happen. Lower round one, Alter Ego versus Order. I think Alter Ego is going to win this. I'm pretty convinced Order is going to be out of this very, very early on, which is pretty disappointing for me. But I mean that I don't really want to be super biased to the Australian team. Next up, Cerberus Esports versus Team Secret. I do think Team Secret is going to try and attempt to make a lower round run. They have not been very impressive at all this season. I think they even failed to qualify in one of the stages, if I remember correctly. I think. I remember they went I think they went 0-5. I think also in the first stage in the Philippines, which is absolutely unacceptable. But I guess they have found a bit more stability, a bit more performance on their team, so maybe that could help them. Upper semi-finals now, we got Onik versus Boom Esports. These two teams have been going neck and neck. I feel like Onik though is the better team though than Boom Esports. I'm gonna say Onik Esports wins that. Bleed versus Myth. Bleed, they've obviously been the best team out of all of these teams in the APAC region. I guess are they really the only team to go up against? Nah. I was about to say that Bleed is the only team that could go up against PaperX and Zershio for a run. No, I was completely wrong. I'm really tempted to say Myth, I'll be honest. I think I have more faith in Myth than in Bleed Esports. So I'm actually going to say Myth. I think Myth is going to surprise some people here in the APAC scene. Go down here, Bleed versus Alter Ego. This is a very easy win for Bleed. I think Bleed has won that pretty convincingly. Boom Esports versus Team Secret. I'm not too sure. I think Team Secret's lower run in the bracket is over. I think Boom Esports wins this one. Upper final, Myth versus Onik. I think Myth is going to win that one. Boom versus Bleed. I think Bleed is going to win this one. Lower final, Bleed versus Onik. I think actually Bleed is going to win this one. And the grand final, I have Made in Thailand punching a ticket into Champions. This will be their first international appearance, and they'll be also the second team to represent Thailand. So that'll be very, very exciting. Obviously, I do think Onik is going to have a really good run. They may actually make it to the grand final. I think their team is really, really solid. They actually have... I think they have a mixture of Boom Esports players and some Alter Ego. No, I think it's mainly a mixture of Boom Esports players, former Boom Esports players, and some other players as well. And obviously, Boom Esports back then, they were really good. I mean, they're still pretty good here, but I mean, back then they were a top tier team. Here they're maybe a top 5. I mean, actually, they're still pretty good, but not as good as last season. We'll say that. I think Bleed, they're going to. I mean, Bleed may also have a chance of making it of winning the grand final, but I'm just not convinced in that one as well. That also makes them, I think, the second Singaporean based team to represent Singapore. So I guess that basically means that Thailand and Singapore are the best regions in APAC. They have in here, I think that's Onyx from Indonesia, so I think Indonesia is going to be doing pretty well. I think Boom might be also from Indonesia, I think, but I'm not too sure about that one. Don't quote me on that. Team Secret, I'm just not fully convinced on their run yet. I just haven't really seen anything good from them. I'll be honest, since Champions, where they made it to the grand, where they made it to the playoffs somehow. I'm not convinced on Team Secret at all. Alter Ego, I think they're going to be decent, just not the best. Order and Cerberus Esports, and I guess also Fantasy United Esports and Griffin Esports. I'm not fully convinced on any of those teams. I think those teams are the bottom 4 teams. Order may surprise me. I'm just a bit skeptical because they did beat against a Filipino team, but I think Oasis' game is Filipino. Is it Oasis' game? I'm not too sure. Whatever. But that team wasn't the best. I'll be honest. They were maybe high as a C tier, maybe even a B tier team. I think Order might be a B, a solid B tier team. I think the Vietnamese, the Hong Kong, Taiwan scene, and also the Oceania scene, mainly a B tier team. Everyone else is an A tier, S tier region. That's just in my opinion, though, because I still think the APAC scene is very dominant between the Thai region and the Singapore and the Malaysian and Singaporean scene, whereas mainly the Singaporeans who just carry that region. But still, I'm not fully convinced on those regions. So, I mean, I did say I was going. I mean, I'm not fully biased on the Australian team of Order, but that's just. I mean, that's just because Oceania. I think they're pretty weak compared to the APAC scene. We saw what they tried to do last time in the playoffs in Stage 2 APAC. Didn't really do well. They did come third place, which is decent though, but not the best, I shall say. So yeah, that's why I'm going to be I guess a bit more harsh and a bit more on reality for Order. As for Fancy 90 Esports, I mean, Fancy 90 Esports, they may surprise me. Griffin Esports may also surprise me. I wasn't expecting any of them to do well in the playoffs, but Griffin actually did decent. They at least made it to the playoffs, which was really good. Fancy 90 Esports and Separate Esports, both of them are very, very similar in my opinion. It just depends on the amount of matches that they win. Which is why I took a bit of a gamble on Separate Esports winning against Alter Ego. I just took that bit of a gamble. I thought it was probably gonna happen. Probably not gonna happen. But we shall obviously wait and see about that. So I'm gonna submit my Pickems. Hopefully that saves. No, it doesn't. Fix sakes. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. Now that I submitted my Pickems, hopefully I did that correctly. I'm hoping I did. It looks okay. Yeah, so I think this is correct. So this is what I obviously had last time as well before it said invalid for some stupid reason. So I'll leave a link to the LCQ to this Pickems as well for the LCQ if you want to do it for yourself, and that'll be a lot of fun. And obviously after the LCQ, I think after maybe all the LCQs, maybe I don't know how I'm still going to do it, but it's probably gonna be when all the LCQs are done. I'll probably make a review on all of them, but at once just to make it easier for me. So yeah, that's really about it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Catch you guys all next time in the next one. Goodbye.